Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:33. This is a special meeting of the Select Board, Monday, January 30th. First order of business are to review and make any changes to the agenda. Are there any changes, additions, deletions to the agenda?
I don't know.
All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from the January 3rd board meeting. Is there a motion to approve as written?
I'll make that motion.
Great. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second. I have to think for a minute. There.
You didn't make that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to approve as written by Leanne, seconded by Suzanne. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes as written, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Yep. Any objections? Any abstentions? We have one abstention. Emily, I just want to clarify, that was an affirmative motion on your part to approve the minutes, right?
It was.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, moving on to Public Works. First item up here is the Municipal Roads General Permit. Mark, do you want to introduce this one?
Yeah, I gave there and
Is it in the folder?
No. It's signed, it just needs to be sent in, right?
yeah. Should have been sent in last week.
This is the highway certificate.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah. I didn't bring a copy with me, but
I can get a copy.
yeah.
Okay, we're gonna table that item for one moment, and we're gonna go to item B, which is the annual highway mileage certificate. That we do have here. I think you say that you have
Yeah.
numbers for that?
Yeah, I've got it. Here's a cool one I'll build out.
Ah, okay, great.
So it's the same mileage as we had, so it's just a matter of signing it.
Okay, so,
Every year we just have to send that in to show that our mileage hasn't changed. And then that's based on what we get for state aid. So then after town meeting, we use those numbers to figure out how much state aid we're gonna get
yep.
after town meeting, because we have to do it off our new budget.
So just for the record, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's what that is.
I was gonna say, just for the record, so this shows class 2 mileage at 6.68 miles, class 3 at 34.87, for a total of 55.864.
Wow.
Oh,
State
I'm sorry,
highway.
state highway is 14.314 for a total of 55.864. We do have 7.87 miles of class 4, but class 4 does not factor into
We don't get any state aid.
the state aid numbers. Any questions on the mileage certificate? Hearing none, we'll vote to adopt.
I'll make a motion to adopt the certificate of highway mileage year ending February 10th, 2023 for the town of Montgomery.
I'll second.
It's the year ending
Wow.
February 10th. Oh,
Yeah, so
I
we
got
just
you.
did-
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're gonna change it in
Yeah.
a few days.
Everything has different years and like, is it a fiscal,
Oh, I
is it
know.
a calendar, is it the certificate of mileage year? Like, what's the beginning, what's the end of the year?
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
Then I'll report, yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, which one's this one due by, and this one, and then.
so we have the motion which has been made to adopt by Mark, seconded by Suzanne. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll vote. All those in favor of adopting the highway mileage certificate, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries, and we have adopted the highway mileage certificate. The Vermont Electric Cooperative Road Crossing Permit Request.
So this is, it's on 1359 Hill West Road. they want it, there's a vault on one side of the road, and they're putting a new house on the other side of the road, so they wanna cross the road. So then we need to just, give permission to Vermont Electric to do that. I mean, they're gonna do it till spring. They just need a town road occupancy request, signed by us to say they can do it. We've already met with the engineer. There's a map of what they're doing. Then I know the contractor does good work, so I'm not too worried about him crossing the road, and we'll make sure everything's done right.
So they're gonna cross the road under the road?
Yeah, they'll
Okay.
go under the road. They may bore it, but I think they're gonna dig it.
Okay.
But it won't be till after mud season.
May I interrupt?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Do we not have to fill out the same kind of permit that, we had to fill out to going under the Reagan Road with sap lines?
This is for Vermont Electric Co-op. Yeah, they do.
They're still digging across the road just as we did up here.
Yeah,
I think the difference is that there's a formalized form that we give permission to the co-op with, whereas for that, it was a form that we had created for the purpose of that. So each crossing is still being authorized by the board, it's just that the co-op has a standardized form that we sign to approve it.
Thank you, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay, good clarification.
yeah.
Who's property?
Ryan Cook.
Ryan Cook. Oh, but yeah. I got
They
you.
just put a new driveway in,
Yep.
and then they're gonna put a house up in there.
Okay, great. Any other questions for Mark on the permit? Hearing no questions, we'll vote. All those in favor of approving,
Do we have a motion?
oh, I'm sorry,
I
Mark
see that
presented.
back.
Is there a motion to approve the permit? Sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve the permit
For 1359 Hill West.
for 1359 Hill West.
Sure.
Yep. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the permit, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries.
No, we'll just have to.
Yeah, we can just leave it up here and we'll,
That one, we need to sign that one too.
yeah, so we'll just,
I'm just filling it in.
yeah, perfect. So if there's no objection, we'll circle back to item 3A, which is the municipal roads general permit. So, do you want to describe what that is, or?
So this is from Environmental Conservation Watershed Management Division. We fill this out every year. It's just gives the information of, I put my information on here so for the contact, and then Charlie's an additional contact. It just states, we read all the terms and conditions through the municipal roads grant program. So this is, we have to sign this so we can get our grants for like bareback roads and all that stuff. And then there's a $640 fee that we submit with this form.
What's the fee, 600? No?
$640. So this is like the grant for Phil West and the grant for Black Falls and stuff. We
Yep.
just have to have this letter stating that we're abiding by all the rules.
Yep.
So,
That $640 is just like a paperwork or a filing fee or something, Mark?
it's just their fee that we pay, yeah, it's like a filing fee and it's just a, yeah. They just started this like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah,
Because those programs had started. So yeah, it's a pretty much a filing fee that we have to pay every year.
yeah. I think this, this came about
So-
at the same time that they started doing the hydrologically connected
Yeah.
ditches where they mapped all the ditch work in each community and rated it as like yellow, green, or red, and then that feeds into kind of the amount of money they're gonna help for the project, so it's part of that larger package that passed. I think you're right, it was about 5 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so I make a motion to sign the notice of intent for stormwater discharge from municipal roads under the municipal roads general permit for 2023.
One second.
So we have a motion to sign the notice of intent for general permit for 2023 by Mark, seconded by Suzanne. Is there any further discussion? Not hearing any or seeing any on Zoom. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Great. Thanks.
I signed it, what do you guys?
Great. I'll just leave it up here for
So I
signatures.
think I catches up on that stuff.
Yep. Great.
And here's that.
Awesome. The last item under Public Works tonight is just the water budget. Everybody should have a copy here. I'm gonna screen share a copy so that you can see one. Wait, oh, did you forward that?
I did.
Okay, sorry. Give me 1 second to pull it up, Emily, and I will. Where are we? Water department budget. Okay, can everybody see that? Can you see that, Emily?
I can.
Okay. Aaron, do you want to just walk through this briefly, just to go over? I mean, this is pretty straightforward. It's just math, really. But do you want to just quickly walk through what the numbers came from, or highlight anything that we should be paying attention to here?
Sure. I just took a stab at it based off of previous years' budgets and actuals. Last year we budgeted, 2 years in a row we budgeted 70,000 for user fees. Last year actuals are 73, and this year so far we're at 41, so I figured I'd bump it up a little higher to 73, still keeping it low conservative, but bond fees I kept the same because they're pretty well fixed.
So year to date is about 6 months.
Yes, yep, that's actually in a little bit of January at this point, so
Yeah,
payments are starting to come in from that last quarter
okay,
that we just built.
yeah.
When our budget starts.
So service fees, just put in at $50, that's.
Yep.
Whatever. Interest same, 80, it's up a little bit this year already. We had a lot of collections in the beginning of this fiscal year from things that were past due, so I bumped it up to 80. Oh wait, so this is revenue, interest earned, that's from the savings account, sorry. That's the same, that's up because of the, interest rate increase that we are seeing across the board. Penalty and interest, 250. Could probably bump it a little bit higher, but I like to be conservative on revenues.
Yep.
13,737, that's what the town, the payment for the town that
Yep.
makes ourselves. Anyway, stipend expenses, we lowered down to 8,000, and based off of the study that I did over this past year that we talked about when we were doing the budget committee on the general fund side, that shakes out to be really close to what it actually takes, tracking my time, Genevieve's time, bringing payments and things. So we lowered it down last year to 8,000, I think 8,000 is realistic, so I just put that back in for this year.
Yep.
So water operations, that's basically gonna be our payroll now, it's instead of the contracted services. Guesstimated to the best of my
Yep.
ability.
Based on averages.
Based on averages, all of those things.
Yep.
office supplies, I kept the same as last year. Tech support and equipment, I dropped down to 1,000 because the contract that we used to have to pay for the service,
The handheld.
for the handheld.
Meter reading equipment.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it works out, if I do, like, I had to call them once and it cost $300. We used to pay a couple thousand a year for the whole thing. It's easier now, I know how to use it, and it's pretty plug and play unless they do an update, which is why I had to call them that one time, but even
Yeah.
that, it works out to be cheaper. So even $1,000 is pretty conservative, but should be good to go. Training, I left 500 in there, just if there's anything that needs to be done. Electricity, I bumped up a little bit because last year's actual was higher, so I just went based off of that. Same with mowing, I went based off of last year actual, and same with the propane. Contracted services is only now anything that Mark needs help with, which I don't know, do you think 6,000 is fine? I think,
so like if I do repairs and stuff,
like Mark Larrabee and
yeah,
things like that.
yeah,
So last year was a little bit higher, but there was some stuff that you had to do that
yeah,
had been built up, so I figured 6 would be fine.
yeah.
Does this include hydrants?
We need to replace 2 hydrants, so I need to budget somewhere again.
Right, so those would be down more under equipment. I bumped that left it at 8, which is, we bumped it up to 8 last year, thinking that would,
Yeah, we're looking at probably at least 4,000 to 5,000 per hydrant.
okay,
And we're just gonna replace those 2 because they're just so old, and it just makes more sense. And usually we wanna do one every year, we didn't get one done last year.
right. So should we bump that
Do
to,
both of them. Just the hydrant was almost 4,000.
Yeah.
So,
and that was 2 years ago.
Probably had 1,000 to put one in, so, yeah, at least 10 to 12,
So bump it from 8 to 10 or 8 to 12?
probably 12,
Okay.
because there's some other stuff I gotta fix too.
Cool.
Plus, we're gonna have that electrical up on, of course, most of that's gonna be,
ARPA.
yeah, after mine.
Yep.
Okay, so we don't need that.
So we bumped that equipment to 12,
Yeah,
okay?
Where are we? Back up to testing, I
Yep.
kept the same. Tools, I put in 500, cause sometimes we looks like we buy a lot and sometimes we don't, so it's good to have something
Yeah.
in there.
yeah,
Building maintenance, we used to budget a lot for building maintenance, and I don't know, I bumped it down, but if you think there's something that you
Yeah,
see
there
that
is.
needs to be done, then we
it
should.
should be at least 1,500, I mean,
Okay.
we gotta do some work on the outside of the building and stuff.
Alright. Treatment supplies, I left at 8,
Is that pretty much just chlorine?
yeah,
Okay, yeah, that should be,
good,
do that.
Okay.
okay.
Yeah,
Bond payments are
Bond
fixed.
payments are fixed.
yeah,
The water fees,
yeah,
and then miscellaneous, I left at 15.
Okay,
So I'll make those changes, I'll change that 8 to 12, and I'll change that 500 to 15.
yeah. We do it.
Okay.
so how come when I change, oh, okay. Okay, so the total budget, expenditure budget is gonna be 107,327.
Oh, good, good.
So that, with those changes, the total budget is gonna go, the expenditure budget is gonna go from 102,327 to 107,327. So I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. And I will ask for a motion to approve the water department budget in the amount of 107,327.
I'll make a motion to approve the water budget in the amount of 107,327.
Great. We have a motion from Suzanne to approve the budget at $107,327. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Great, seconded by Leanne. Is there any discussion on the motion? Not hearing any discussion, we will call the question. All those in favor of approving the FY24 water department budget in the amount of $107,327. Please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, water budget is approved. Moving on to new business. First item here is the board approval of the application for the Town Hall Grange on the National Register of Historic Places. Scott, do you want to introduce this topic?
Yeah, I would. Can I share?
Yep. So what I'm going to do is I am going to make you host, and then when you're done, I'll explain to you how to make me host again.
You will have to.
So, Scott, you are now the host, and so you can screen share using that green button on the bottom of your screen.
Okay. Thanks for letting us come and talk with you guys. I know Stu and I are here kind of representing ourselves and just have some involvement. It's the issue or the program for the town hall. Since we don't own the building, it's not really a historical society lead kind of thing, and we're willing to support, but we want to make sure we're on the same sheet of music as the board. Just on your screen now, in Vermont, from what I can tell, having gone through a couple of these, and I know you've got expertise on the board there, but there's really two centers of gravity for historic preservation grants. And one is the state, and the other one is Preservation Trust of Vermont, or what's called PTV. PTV is a private nonprofit and really has no at least financial connection, and the grants are available from both places. So I thought I'd just lay that out there because sometimes it gets confusing talking about who's doing what to whom and that kind of thing. This past November, Devin Coleman, who works for the state, he's the state architectural historian, which is an office within the Vermont Division for Historic Preservation, made a determination that the Montgomery Town Hall was eligible for nomination to the National Register of Historic Places. The determination was made at the request of the Select Board. We kind of carried some of the water for that. Sue Wilson did a lot of the legwork and basically worked with Devin. And the determination was significant because it is kind of the minimum threshold for any kind of preservation grant you want. Typically, the applications say, is your project or is your property on the National Register of Historic Places, or is it eligible to be put on? If you can't say yes to one of those, you're really not very competitive. So I'm happy to say that as of this past November, or November of 2021 rather, the town hall has been eligible for programs. We provided information to Devin Coleman, and he put together what was called the Vermont Architectural Resource Inventory form, which is about 6 pages, not counting any kind of supporting documentation. His total package for the town hall was 9 pages. You should have everybody there, if you haven't got it, we do have the letter from the state. We think we sent it to y'all. We also have the inventory, the architectural resource inventory form. Those both become kind of planning documents for what may come next. And that kind of leads me into the question, so what do you want to do next? These are kind of the major activities that happen, as I understand it, after we go down this path. We already kind of ticked the box across off the list of formal eligibility determination. The next question is next things you can do is you can do any one of the next 3 things there. You could do them in order. You could do them out of order. You could do them simultaneously, although that would be a lot to chew on. And it's progressively more work and more expensive. And so the question is, does the town want to go ahead and get on the National Register? That's something that Sue and I urge you to do. It really doesn't cost that much, and it doesn't really have any covenants or obligations other than it gets you kind of your foot in the door a little bit more ahead of anyone that's just got the eligibility determination. This is an application, a formal nomination that goes to the U.S. Park Service. The Park Service is the one that approves the placement on the list. As an example, it usually has to be written by someone that has some expertise in the field. And as an example, the most recent one was the one for the former Baptist Church. It was 56 pages, counting supporting documentations. It was done by a graduate student trying to work on her historic preservation master's degree. And she was very generous and didn't charge us anything at all, so that was a freebie. But I'm told now that there are grants from Preservation Trust of Vermont that will pay for the actual write-up of the nomination. I've never gone down that path, so I don't know the particulars of it. It's typically about $1,000 to $2,000 we estimate, and basically the grants from Preservation Trust are all match grants. So if it was $2,000, the town would have to pony up $1,000. That's just to write the nomination that submits to the U.S. Park Service. That, like I said, probably take about a year, maybe a little bit longer to do, but I think is probably the next logical step, and that's something that we would support if the town wants to, in fact, go down that path. I mean, that basically begs the question, does the town want to put that energy in at this point in anticipation of probably tapping into some preservation funds and typically treating it a little bit different than it has been maybe in the past. Sue has agreed to lead an effort to do that, and I'll talk a little bit more. We'd like to, though, to have a point of contact or a lead person on the select board that would be work with Sue and I to do that. But the goal would be to have formal placement on the National Register of Historic Places by sometime like this next year. Just for your background, there's 3 buildings in Montgomery that are at the Pratt Hall, at the Black Lantern, and now the Montgomery Center for the Arts. All of those are considered private properties in private hands. And then there's also all the covered bridges in town are on the National Register. Those are written up and nominated by people in town here, but technically they are I think the property of the state when it comes down to it. So this would be one more, but it would be the first structure or building totally owned and responsible, having the town being responsible for it. After that, the next logical step would be to start applying for planning grants, although there's no reason why you couldn't do both at the same time. Planning grants are typically low-cost grants of about $500 with a match of $500. And those are to get an expert in historic architecture to look over the building, figure out what the priority projects ought to be, and basically write a report. And sometimes that begets another report, and that's kind of what happened with Pratt Hall. We had 2 planning grants that looked at both the building as a whole and then some of the post-beam structural specialty stuff that needed to be done. Once you've got that in your pocket, it helps you justify going for the grants that I call the actual project grants, the grants that put, hammers to nails and that sort of thing. And those basically can be from either the state and or the Preservation Trust of Vermont. Those are the ones that, I think the MCA got, Susan can correct me there. But they also have some specialty grants that the Preservation Trust of Vermont administers. One in particular is called the 772 grant, and that's specifically for routine maintenance of buildings like painting and doing window repairs and that sort of thing that would be a good fit. I also know that the Preservation Trust is really trying to jazz up their work with what they consider village centers, town centers, and community-centered buildings that get a lot of use by the public, and that would be seems to be a natural fit for a preservation kind of grant once you went down that path. So, I think that's pretty much it. I'll wrap up. Let me go down here, one thing here. So two things we hopefully, if the board wants to do it, again, we're not really pushing it, but if you want to do it, we want to be supportive. And that would be to have a member of the board appointed. I know Sue reached out to Emily, and I've been out of the loop a little bit, so I don't know if Emily agreed to them or not. And then we offered this as just kind of as a resolution that you might adopt tonight if you want to move forward on this. But again, the goal would be at this point to get a grant, hire somebody to write the nomination to the National Park Service to place the town hall on the National Register of Historic Preservation. Does anybody have any questions, or was that, hopefully it was clear enough? Now, tell me how to get it back to you.
Yep. So to get it back to me, Scott, what you do is you go,
I stopped my share.
Yep, so go to My Box, go up in the upper right-hand corner of My Box, there should be 3 dots.
Yep.
Click on those 3 dots, and there should be something that says, Make Host.
You should be there.
Okay, Town of Montgomery. Wait, nope, sorry, let me just tweak that. This was the computer that...
So did you have anything you wanted to add?
The zoning administrator does it.
I don't have anything to add, no, does anybody have any questions?
Sue, you have anything you want to add?
Oh, no, just that, the reason why I reached out to Emily is it's easier to deal with one person instead of always having to come to the board with everything. So that's why I was hoping that you would allow Emily to be the liaison to the select board.
Emily, are you cool with that?
I am. It's definitely something I would like to support if the board wants to move in the direction of taking on this work.
All right. Anybody have any other questions, comments, thoughts?
No, I think it's good.
I have a question.
Charlie, I harken back to, I know, it'd be nice to preserve every building in town, and I also remember sitting on the board with Kenny Cota a long time ago, and he having the opinion that they should have just bulldozed that building into the truck a long time ago. It's such a pain in the butt to maintain and whatnot. But I think it's a jewel of a building. You just got to look at it through the right eyes, I guess. And we could dress it up and put some exhibits in there to kind of show its past, and it might make it kind of neat to do. But again, it's totally up to the select board. It's not something that society is pushing. It's just kind of a pet rock that both Sue and I have.
We got another building in town.
But the Historical Society would probably be agreeable to buying the plaque,
Absolutely.
wouldn't we?
We did before.
Right, we did for the Baptist church,
Right.
right.
Yeah, Doug, go ahead.
My only question is like when this happens and that this isn't, don't take it the wrong way. When this happens and you're listed on that list, does it change how you go about doing any work to the building as far as like jumping through federal hoops or any of that? Do they have any oversight over that, or it is just
No,
put you on the list?
I have my sheet to cover and I didn't, so I apologize. No, just being named to the list itself doesn't have any restrictions at all. You can paint it purple, you can put polka dots on it, but there's no covenants or anything like that. However, if you start taking preservation grant money, especially money that comes down through the federal chain, because the state really doesn't have any preservation money, they get an allotment, as it were, from the feds, and then they allocate it internal to the state. Whereas the Preservation Trust money is a little bit, they have a little bit more control, but even the latest application I saw talked about like a 10-year or 20-year covenant. So, yeah, if you take federal money in particular under a preservation program, there may be some restrictions on what you can do. Otherwise, just being on the list doesn't have any effect at all.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? All right, not hearing any questions, I would offer the following motion. The town of Montgomery recognizes the significance of and values its heritage in many forms and appreciates efforts to designate its covered bridges and other historic structures on the state and national registers of historic places. In furtherance of that end, the town will pursue the nomination of the Montgomery Town Hall, formerly the Congressional Church, the Crescent Theater, and Grange 548, to be placed on the National Register of Historic Places.
I'll make that motion to introduce that.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second the motion.
Oh, Emily.
All right, Emily, thanks. Is there any further discussion?
Charlie, can you appoint Emily?
We'll get to.
Yeah, why don't we do this and then we'll move to appoint Emily. So if there's no further discussion, we will vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries. So the next would be a motion to appoint Emily Kimball as the select board liaison to the project. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a
Second that.
Great. So the motion's been made by Mark, seconded by Suzanne. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I think I'm supposed to abstain, so I did.
Okay, great. So 4-0-1, any abstentions. Great. Awesome. Well, thank you, Sue and Scott and Emily for that. We'll get the ball rolling there and we will keep moving forward. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Next up is the emergency services ambulance contract renewal. So our current contract is with Enosburg Ambulance. That contract is up for renewal. Larry Jarvis is joining us tonight. Larry, what's your formal title, I guess, in relation to this?
I'm select board, Enosburg select board chair.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you had another hat with the ambulance crew.
No, actually,
Also,
Pierre Letourneau, the vice chair, right now is acting as an interim director.
Okay. Great. I guess I'll give you the floor now to introduce the contract or whatever other points you want to make, and then we can open up to general discussion with everybody.
So I'll place this in front of you. There's one of these is a 3-year, one's a 5-year contract. We would prefer to go 5-year just for stability. That's what you guys ran last time. One thing that I want to make clear on is on the second page, I think it's probably number 3, is the payments for years. And the previous one was based on a population of 1,201. This one, the population number we're getting from your town is 992. So if that's not the correct number, then these numbers are not correct, because it's a per capita price and based on population. And that probably should have been spelled out in that contract. I don't think there's really any statement that says per capita price. Because if you break it down, and I just did the rough math here, it's basically year 1 would be roughly around 33 per capita, year 2 would be 34, year 5 35, years 4 36, and 37 the following year, which is like a 3% increase per year. And I believe the old contract was probably around $28 per capita, so last year we did a a huge jump just because the environment that's happened through COVID and trying to retain employees and raising everything, salaries and whatnot. So, one thing I wanna, say on a good note is, we've been undermanned, and so there's been a lot of overtime going on there, and we have a new budget, which actually, I guess I could probably share this too, this is the budget of, it's not proposed, because we're still, I mean, it's proposed in front of us, but we're still working on it. So like, you have the 2022 numbers here, and we actually, had some pretty good numbers, but then you look at the salary numbers are significantly going up, and it's reflecting, some new positions coming in to help solidify the ambulance, and, right now we've got 2 full-time paramedics, last week, said that they were coming on to our service. So right now we only have 1 full-time position, we used to have 3, and, we've had directors in and out, and one of these 2 should be going as the director, and the other one's gonna be, supervisor underneath them, so that'll give us a little more stability going forward. And plus getting 3 paramedics, because we have 1 right now, we'll have 3 paramedics on the service. Should definitely help us out greatly going forward. And we haven't, I think we've been out of service like 1 time since last June, but that's just because these guys have put in massive amount of overtime to try to plug the holes, and we've been really fortunate. COVID comes in, guys on service are sick, they're out, they try to fill it. It's 24/7, it's pretty tough to do. There was a question that Doug had asked earlier, if one person's on call and the other one's at home, they're both on call and they're both full-time, but the pay rate is full. There's no partial rate if they're at home, even though they're within 3. We used to do that years ago, when you used to have multiple people on the service, but now if you do that, you're just gonna lose people, so. There's only a few that are nearby, so that helps where they can probably do a longer, do a double shift or something. So last year, just some quick notes, I guess there was like 55 calls in Montgomery. And there's another possible, we're looking to get 4 full-time people, and there's another EMT that is looking promising right now, so hopefully in a couple weeks, we'll have too many people. That's the problem, and that's why the per capita ask has gone up significantly, is everything's raised, the salaries are raised, but you have the same small pool of healthcare providers in Franklin County that all the services are buying to try to grab. So one service raises their salary, the next one has to go forth, and unfortunately, you got Medicaid, Medicare, will not pay 100% of the bill, so those are things that we have to fight against. And we just bought a new ambulance, over $200,000. We used to have an ambulance fund, and that's all washed up. So this past year, we've had the most calls, or responded to more calls than we've ever had. We don't know, is that just a 1-year thing with the COVID? Because if it goes back to 900 calls instead of 1,200, then your services are, you still have the same salaries, the same overhead and stuff. So there is an ask that we may have to do for Enosburg taxpayers, because we're same per capita vote as all the other towns. Enosburg pays the same per capita. And you look at the budgets, it's listed on there. We may have to increase our own to try to get maybe like an ambulance fund started again. Because right now we've got ambulances stretched out on 7-year contracts or payments, and it used to be 5, and you really can't. You're buying a new one at the end of 7, so you're constantly making high payments. It's a thing that's the whole state of Vermont's fighting. But yeah, we've had our second chair, the vice chair, helping run out this service. He used to run an ambulance years ago, So he was kind of familiar with it, and our town clerks really spent a lot of time in there. That's why these 2 new hires are gonna take significant pressure off of them, and hopefully the rest of the crew. And I guess if you got any specific questions, I can try to answer them.
So can you just remind us, when we think about personnel and their qualifications, for lack of a better, or certifications, I guess, right? We've got like paramedics, which are what we could think of as like the highest level of
Highest.
training.
Yeah.
And you said right now you've got 1 and you're bringing 2 on?
Yeah, we have one, but she's a school nurse, and she's actually a per diem.
Yeah,
And these 2 new ones are going to be full-time.
okay,
And they're also gonna take extra load as being a director and second in command, basically.
okay. So those hires are either they've been made or they're definitely gonna
Yeah,
happen?
they've gave their notice to the other company they're working for, and hopefully, I think it's 2 weeks. Here last Friday, they never gave their notice, so it's
Okay,
definitely a positive there. One thing that I should bring up, and it just got brought in front of us last week, is we had a demonstration from a Zoll there on a CPR machine, and you know, you're aware, everybody doing CPR have to do all the compressions and stuff, and to be able to maintain that from the point of where the patient is to the hospital is very unrealistic that a human can do that the whole time. So we're looking at purchasing a CPR, it's a machine basically that does the compressions and stuff there. So we keep adding different little things there. I know there's a child care contraption that they recently got the past year now, so you can handle a smaller body and keep them intact. And, several other things. They always pop up.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, so just going back to the other question, so you got paramedics, then you've got, below a paramedic would be an
AEMT,
an AEMT.
I think there's AMT, and then they got VFers, which is basically just a driver.
Okay, which is like the, okay,
Like the fire, what they've been able to do, and that's, the state of Vermont allowed that to happen, and that's been huge because it's actually getting into training for them to take the next level. It's made them, okay, I like this, now I'm starting to get the training, so they want to be an A. And then you have AEMT, then you have the paramedics.
okay. How many AEMTs do you guys have on staff?
I don't have those specific numbers in front of me.
Okay,
There's, I was at a meeting last week, there's 15 people in the room. There's a lot of per diem guys, some they may only do 1 shift a month. And then there's some that, they're there overtime all the time. I would guess, actually I can probably ask the town clerk, because she's got those numbers.
that's okay, it was more curiosity. And I guess the question gets to, so in the contract, the service is defined as the advanced life support service, here and after the service. And I guess, I'm just curious, and we're talking about personnel and what you guys have and what you're building to, is there, in the definition of the service, is there a defined personnel expectation, I guess is my question. So if we're contracting for the service, the advanced life support service, is the expectation going to be that there's always gonna be a paramedic on call?
That'll never happen, you can't have a paramedic in 24 hours. They may have done a shift the day before or whatever, but they do, and there's a need for a paramedic, it has to be toned down, another service that has a paramedic.
Okay,
Nearby has to, they may be transported and you may jump on board. Yeah, it would be great if there was a paramedic, you have to have one paramedic on.
no, and that makes sense, I'm just trying to figure out, I guess, when we talk about the service and the expectation of that, is the service just the expectation that there will be coverage by an AEMT or greater certification?
Yes, yeah, because you'd be out of service if you didn't have that qualification.
Okay,
There's also basic EMTs in between the two. There's the AEMT, the basic EMT, and then there's emergency first responder.
Okay. Okay, that helps. I just wanted to make sure I understood kind of like when we're talking about the service, like what is, I mean, I think it's like I know it when I see it, like we can all point to what it is, but not having it defined like that, you know, that might be one thing to define.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's basically a copy of the old contract verbiage.
Yep. Which, you know, it's worked, I guess, but.
Well, that's the thing, that's what we're here for, if there's something that
Yeah.
needs to be clarified or changed, because we've got till the end of this month.
Yeah, I guess one thing that I would say is if we could define if we could better define what the service is, I guess, it would be helpful just for both parties to have it down as far as what that is. Because right now it reads, the advanced life support service shall be provided here and after the service. But it's not like what the advanced life support service isn't outlined. And I think we can all kind of say what we think it is and what we've known it to be or whatever, but if we can spell it out in the contract.
I can definitely ask, you know, this is what came from our lawyer, so. I'm sure there's other contracts that may have
Sure.
a little different verbiage that can be added.
So our current contract runs through the end of February?
I believe it's 28th, yeah.
Okay, so is it cool if we hang on to these for a few weeks and get it back to you with any amended versions by the end of next month?
Well, no, we have this. Well,
No, yeah.
February. Yeah, February.
We're another day here, so.
Yeah.
I keep thinking of February also there. Yeah, we would definitely, you know, if we're gonna put a definition, and there may be a little bit of clarification on this per capita.
Yep, and we can clarify the per capita thing on our end and get that back to you too.
And also, with this increase last year, some of the other supporting towns that we had, were able to use, because we were the contract company, able to use some of their ARPA funds if they chose to or not to. But that is available to them because of a raise like that, it was due to COVID, kind of indirectly there, but there is an opportunity there, so it won't have to be raised, some of it won't have to be raised off taxpayers if you choose to go that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great, Doug, any questions as fire chief or anything that you want to flag for us to chase down or think about?
No, I think the definition of what ALS is important and what to expect in a manned crew, like the minimum, what we'll see, and then I, from experience, have seen when they need to call a paramedic, so that system works because there just aren't enough paramedics in Vermont, period, to staff one on every ambulance, so.
And I think when we
Can't
got this
happen.
contract, we probably didn't even have a paramedic when
Yeah,
we started.
they usually call for a paramedic intercept is what happens when you're en route, and that they'll have one meet them somewhere between here and the hospital.
And that may happen for us, like Richford needs, you know, so, and that's where we've talked to them, trying to get something going legislatively with like a regional system there, but we've talked between our services, you know, if you take our paramedic, which may be on duty, you may wanna drop your A guy or whoever's to replace it, because it's gonna take us out of service.
Yep.
To continue that ride, so.
Gotcha.
Definitely need to get that regionally, there's one question, or thing I wanted to make a statement on, but I'm slipping my mind here, you know? But, okay, so get a definition of ELS,
Yep.
minimum language, some language on the minimum crew,
And we'll clarify the per capita for you.
okay?
Is there anything in there that's defining that when, I think I saw something, but if your crew's busy and then your second crew is unavailable or also busy, then clearly you can't respond because you're completely acted, you know, overextended at that point, so it falls onto mutual aid. I think I saw that.
Yeah, it's on number 2.
Right, mutual aid happens, and then from there it goes on to the next mutual aid, and it's just like the fire service, where Sometimes calls are extremely busy and everybody's spread thin and you may have to wait 45 minutes.
So that's,
Granted, we're not like England where it could be 12 hours, but
Yeah.
so that's where we're hoping to get with, these new hires that we're hoping to take on. And some of these VFers going through these classes, if we can keep manning up more people, then there'll be somebody for that second rig available more times than not. Right now, you just don't have the first number of people to be able to take that on. But, gotta get back into the schools. I know when I was back in school, it was plenty of kids running around with the ambulance jumpsuits, and you don't see that anymore.
Yeah, it's harder and harder to staff, so.
Yeah.
Awesome, well, I appreciate your time tonight
Yeah,
coming out to talk, and so we'll get back to you with some more information, and when you have that other language ready, you can email it over, and then we'll get this all cleared up for next month.
Okay, appreciate
Awesome.
your time.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have
Thank
a
you.
good night.
You too. Take care.
So if there's no objection, I'd like to pass over for now the next item, ARPA funds, and tackle the budget first,
Okay.
because the ARPA funds are kind of a conversation about like what's not in the budget and what we would propose to pay out of ARPA as opposed to the municipal budget. Folks should have a copy of the budget in front of them. And for the benefit of those at home, what I will do is I will also screen share as we walk through. Okay, so the budget committee met for a total of 5 meetings over the course
Can
of.
you make it larger? Sorry.
The budget committee met for a total
That
of.
sounds familiar.
Yeah, the budget committee met for a total of 5 meetings over the course of 3 weeks. Again, the budget committee consists of myself, Aaron, Sue, Scott, and Mark. As always, I just want to take a moment to recognize Erin and all the work she does for this. The budget process has been very much streamlined in the last 4 years. How long have you been treasurer now? 4? Yeah. So Erin has done a terrific job streamlining a lot of the systems that we've used to make things directly compatible between NEMRIC and the spreadsheets that we're doing. To cut the time down essentially dramatically, and also a lot of the numbers that we're looking at, I think, and this is not, to cast shade on past budget processes, but I think I have better faith in some of the numbers that we're putting forward here due to kind of the sources they're coming from and what we're looking at. So the proposed budget here, we'll walk through and I'll highlight some things as we go through. But not to bury the lead, I'm just going to go right to it at the end of the budget, and we'll get back to this at the end. But the proposed budget, does this have the? Oh, wrong tab. We have no expenses this year. No, the proposed budget. Is that big enough, Sue? Yep. The proposed budget, we are looking at an increase here. The proposed budget is 1.399 million. We are looking at, down here you can see the projected increase in the tax rate. This is kind of the number everybody goes to. And we are looking at a projected increase in the tax rate of about 9%. I will say right now that if you look at the federal cost of living adjustment for the last year, it's gone up by 8.9%. I think that everybody here understands that stuff is just more expensive due to inflationary pressures. And well, I think the budget committee tried as hard as we could to minimize the increase in the tax rate. I will say that, no one wants to see an increase, but if we can keep an increase to what the federal COLA percentage is, I think we're in a better place than we could be. Essentially the projected increase in the tax rate is meeting the inflationary increase that we're all seeing. And that is the biggest driver of the budget, is goods and services costing more. So I'm gonna hop back to revenue, and I'm gonna highlight some just specific areas that stand out. Aaron, Scott, Mark, or Sue, if there's anything that you want to highlight as we walk through this, please scream, yell, wave your hands, do whatever. Revenue side, the very first number here, and I'm not gonna talk about each number, don't worry, it won't be here all night, but the first number is an important one, the unreserved funds number. We're coming into this next budget season projected to have a really healthy unreserved funds number. This is partially due to budgeting, and we can all pat ourselves in the back, but we also had some unexpected revenue come in this year that was in a pretty significant amount. This was represented in FEMA funds that we weren't expecting in the amount of close to $40,000, I think. 30,000. There was some other grant revenue that was unexpected. So the unreserved funds number is a combination of budgeting, but also some unexpected revenue that did come in during the fiscal year, which is projected to put us in a good place. That's great. We should never totally rely on unexpected income. And so just to stay in the future that, that's not something that we can count on, but it's projected to put us in a pretty good place coming into the next fiscal year. Again, the big thing here is that the higher the unreserved funds number, the lower that number to be raised by property taxes is. So a higher reserve fund number is a good thing. As we walk down, most of these, so obviously property taxes is a calculation based on what we need to raise based on the budget. It's not a fixed number, but we can't monkey with that. Basically, the other numbers feed into that. Most of the revenue projections here are carried forward based on averages. There shouldn't be any huge surprise. One number that you'll see did drop is on line 6, current use hold harmless. There was a random spike associated with the inflated tax rate from the 18-month budget. And because the current use reimbursements are based on the tax rate, that inflated tax rate impacted the current use rates that we're getting. So because of the inflated tax rate during the 18-month budget, the current use payment dropped. So that's why we're seeing about 88.7 as opposed to 110. Next year that should go back up because we're going to have the tax rate, it'll track with the adjusted tax rate that we've seen. But that's the reason why it wasn't like there was a whole lot of changes to the amount current use pays or the enrolled properties. So again, most of these as we walk down are either fixed or they are just carried forward based on averages. I will highlight that there's no U.S. Postal Service rent budgeted for this next fiscal year. That could change depending on what happens. There's still some variables. To that end, I do have a meeting, like an actual talking meeting, not emails, with 3 representatives from the post office on Thursday. At which point, hopefully we'll get some more insight onto what their plans are for that building.
The ATM also
We zeroed out the ATM just because we wanted to zero out just that building in general. If again, one track here would be to sell the building to this Postal Realty Trust is one option. If we did that and everything transferred, again, we wouldn't have the rental income. So that was the reason why we zeroed that out. With the revenue side, we're always trying to be conservative. So we shoot for lower numbers because if we get more money, we're all happy. If we shoot for higher numbers and we get less money, we're not happy. So again, walking down through these, most of these are just carried forward. They're just averages. The thing that I want to draw your attention to, mostly on the revenue, is towards the bottom, just as an explanation. So water department labor. So this is revenue that comes into the municipal budget from the water department, which is paying for, Aaron, help me out here, it's paying for the services that the town clerk's office provides administratively?
No.
No.
So that was a special line item for last year that was only to cover Mark and Scott's time to move out of highway funds.
That's
So we
right.
calculated as a percentage what we estimated that was going to look like to cover the percentage of their salaries for the entire year. And we thought that would be about $23,150. So I took the actuals of Mark and Scott's times and the percentage that we had calculated or we had estimated in last year's budget to come up with that figure. And based off of actual numbers from this July to the end of September when Mark transitioned to his payroll, now fully just water department, no more tied to highway department. And the portion of Scott's salary for that same amount of time. And crunched it down and came out with this $4,096. So basically that is all the expense that we're gonna see from that 23,000. That was a one-time thing to cover moving, to account for the labor and not have it all fall under the highway funds, to separate it out to the water funds. So basically this was a one-time thing that is finished and is now going to move its way through and then fall off.
Yep.
And we have the same line over on the expense side to account, to move those expenses from the highway payroll up into that special line for the water payroll.
The water payroll, okay, and that's why this year it's going to be a budgeted number for 0.
Right.
Okay, so last year.
One thing that, this doesn't affect the FY24 budget, but one thing I'm noting here on the spreadsheet versus what we've got printed out in front of us is just the year-to-date actuals for FY23. Should there be a 92,711 there?
There is on mine. Is there, isn't it?
It's on the spreadsheet.
Is it on your printout
But it's not
too?
on the one that you emailed me.
Interesting.
Okay,
It's in mine. I
Yeah.
don't know.
not a big deal because it's not,
Yeah.
I mean, so
No, it's in the actuals because that's the actual amount that we pulled out of the reserve fund. So, yeah, the 92,711.
yeah, so that line for the year-to-date FY23 should be 92,711.
Yeah,
I don't know why it's blank on this iteration, but
interesting.
again, it doesn't affect the FY24 number that we're
No,
looking
no.
at. That 1399220 is still correct.
Yep.
So,
I wonder if my cursor, I've got it open, I wonder if my cursor's in it doing
Is it
something.
on it,
Could be.
maybe.
so that was use of reserve funds project and grants. So that was income?
So, do you want to describe what the use of reserve funds line was and why we're
And
not
so
using
that
it?
one has also ties over to line 49 in the projects
Oh.
and events, that's the money we pulled for the parking lot. So
Yeah.
it shows on the
Okay.
revenue side because we marked that 152, what we were going to pull from the reserve fund. So what we actually pulled so far is the 92. And then over on the projects and events line, the total is 93,811, but there's
Yeah.
a little bit of other stuff in there. So it's on both sides. It's showing the revenue and
Oh,
showing the
that's right.
expense, just to show, because we did pull it out of the reserve fund, but there's no way to everybody's gonna say, well, where's the money you spent on the parking lot? It's not shown in this budget. It's gonna be shown in the
Yeah.
individual lines on the reserve fund
Okay.
pages in
Yeah,
the town report, but this shows it visually in here.
You got the
So it's not like a check that anybody cut, it's not that kind of revenue, it's
Yeah.
pulled from the reserve fund and it ties to the expense and so it basically washes itself out
Yeah.
through the general fund.
And then this year, what the budget committee decided was that we still have projects that we're going to be paying for out of that reserve fund. But rather than do the math in the general fund, we're just gonna book it right to the reserve fund, and that way it'll show up in the reserve fund accounting, but we're not gonna have this dance on the general fund about money in, money out, which can be confusing to people because we're not actually getting a check for $92,000.
In an effort to share a lot, I think we shared too
We
much
overshared.
on that one, we overshared.
We overshared. Okay. So those are kind of the main highlights here from the income side. That last one you're gonna see is the FEMA state reimbursement. So that was that unexpected $30,000 that we got. Again, it's there because we got the money, but otherwise that line would be phasing out after we don't use it for a certain amount of time, we get it off the budget. But because we had it for FY '21 as an actual and we got money in for FY '23 unexpected, that line is there. We're not budgeting any FEMA income in FY '24, and God, let's hope we don't have any FEMA income in FY '24. Running through the expense side of things, you're gonna notice for the town office, as well as highway, payroll numbers are up. We have done COLA adjustments for all the staff, so salaries are up based on that.
Charlie, can you scroll?
Oh, sorry, Sue, sorry. So just saying, with payrolls for town office and also highway payroll, you're gonna notice the numbers are up. I will note highway payroll is up considerably. This is because of not only COLA adjustments, but right now we're operating with 2 full-time, 1 part-time. The expectation is that come July 1st, we're gonna move our part-time staff to full-time status. When that full-time status kicks in, the individual is going to be eligible for the benefits that go along with the position. The town still does pay 95% of the employee's chosen platinum plan, which is like the Cadillac of plans. The number here is budgeted due to what we expect the individual to be applying for. That alone is about $30,000 more out of this budget. Health insurance costs a lot of money. We give people quite a bit in their package. 95% of a Cadillac plan is like not something you're gonna get in most places.
Right.
That being said, the decision was made to do that because we want to attract and retain staff. We already have people trying to poach employees of ours to other towns. We want to keep them. The board can revisit this in the future, and maybe we should, but the budget committee talked about this and did not recommend a adjustment down on the health insurance because we thought it would be kind of talking out both sides of our mouth to say we're going to give you a COLA adjustment over here, but we're also going to cut what we're giving into your health insurance over here, thereby your net package would not increase. So for now, we're still looking at, with this budget, the 95% of the platinum plan. But that's a pretty big chunk of money, so just something to keep in mind for the board going forward that there's a lot of money there. Listers, Listers, the budget here isn't changing considerably from the, the budget here is not changing considerably from the FY '23 budget, 30,000 to 33, but there is a framework change that we're looking to do with the listers that was recommended by the listers. And the recommended change here is that the listers would like to go from a board of listers only, which is how we've traditionally operated, to a board of listers or an active lister board with contracted assessor. And so under this framework, we keep a voting board of listers. It would not be an 8-hour-a-week job like it currently is. They would oversee the work of the assessor. They would hire the assessor. They would contract the assessor. But the assessor would be doing the work of actual appraisals and the nuts and bolts of that kind of work. The pros here are that you still have the local knowledge, but you have the professional consultation along with it. There's still a statutorily independent elected board. The listers would still participate in professional development, and you'd still have the assessing and grand list consistency of it. But I think that the contracted assessor part of it would basically professionalize the numbers we're looking at when we get appraisals done and reassessments done. It's been recommended by the board of listers that we move in this direction. The listers would still be part of the BCA. The listers would still hold grievance hearings. and they would still sign off on the grand list. So what we'd be looking at here is that baked into this budget, there's $16,000 for contracting the appraiser. Assessor, I'm sorry. And then in this budget, we also have baked in $9,000, which would go towards paying town office staff. So this isn't baked into the town office payroll, it'd be money from listers. But what this would be is it would basically be paying the town clerk or assistant clerk to do all of the nuts and bolts, day-to-day data entry, spreadsheets, all of the work the listers had been doing, which they wouldn't be doing because we don't have the 8-hour-a-week lister position anymore. So the overall number here is not changing a huge amount, but what's feeding into that number is changing some to get there. Does that make sense to everybody? Anybody have any questions about that? No? Okay. Continuing to walk through, highlighting some changes or some significant things here. If anybody has any questions, please stop me. The emergency services contract number that's in here is estimated. We didn't have the contract agreement in hand, but the number that's budgeted in here would cover the projected increase in the contract, so we're safe there. Yeah. Highway payroll, again, that's gone up considerably just due to cost of living adjustments, insurance, and those changes. And then the road maintenance material, those budgets, those are also going up considerably, and that is just a straight cost of goods increase.
Yeah.
So just as some points of context, salt has gone from $76 a ton to $93 a ton. Gravel has increased by almost $4 a yard. The price of culverts has doubled from $224 to $444. Even grass seed has gone up by 5 times what we were paying for it. So the big increases that we're seeing here in road maintenance and materials are associated with things just cost more, and there's no way we can kind of get around that. I wish we could, but that's just kind of how it goes. We also have, outside of the materials we think about sand and gravel, we also have some equipment related expenses. Things like hydraulic fluid. Hydraulic fluid used to be $375 a barrel. It's now $814 a barrel. We're going to need to buy quite a number of tires this year. We've kind of deferred purchase of tires for a number of years, so we have some new or increase in tire purchases. We're going to be looking at 10 new tires and then recapping about 18 tires. The price of tires has increased by $250 a tire. So again, things are just more expensive than they used to be. So that is why the essentially road maintenance and materials costs have gone up considerably. Mark, or anybody else in the budget committee, anything to add around public works?
Project and events. Where's the, I can't remember where we put the money that we're gonna have to match the long bridge and all that.
Infrastructure replacement, it's gonna come directly.
Yep.
Out
That'll
of
be
the
in
fund.
Reserve, out of the reserve fund.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, and the matches, that's why I was
We're
trying
adding, we're adding 10,000 to that reserve fund, or that, I
No.
can't remember what that.
we put 10 as a placeholder to use if we needed to for more, if there's a project that comes up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
It's basically just a buffer
okay.
to have it there should something come up that's unexpected. But yeah, the match requirements for the projects, which are Black Falls, Hill West, Longley Bridge, that's all going to come out of the reserve fund.
Yeah.
And then those expenditures will be shown in the reserve fund budget.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Machinery fuel, I think anybody that owns a motor vehicle that uses gas or diesel can understand why this number has jumped.
Yeah.
Buildings and grounds, biggest increase here we're seeing is in the Public Works building. And I'm trying to remember what the jump there was for, because that's not associated with the,
That is fuel and everything for that building, right?
oh, yeah, that does
That
include,
That includes your fuel.
Building.
that's right,
Yeah.
that does include, yeah, those
Yeah.
mostly,
So
I think
that's what-
every little category in that building jumped up a little bit,
That's
so
why-
it kind of all added up.
Yeah,
to
that's
be
all
higher.
included in that 22.
Yeah. I'm sorry, so yeah, that's a
Yeah.
fixed cost.
Yeah,
increase.
because FY 22's actual was 19 and we bumped up
Yeah.
those a little bit even.
Yeah. Because of fuel, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you, my brain was not functioning right there. Moving down, just to highlight some other things that jump out. Again, the big things that jump out are like big changes in budget numbers, like whoa, this is jumping, this is changing. So that's what I'm trying to highlight here. Some things here, main thing with debt service is the 2018 International truck. Our last payment was made in FY 23, so we don't have a payment on the 2018 International truck here because it's paid off, which is great.
That's why it almost broke down there.
Yeah, right?
Well,
Yeah.
it always happens.
It did, but it's going again, but I don't know.
The rest of debt service is all fixed.
Truck two.
Department budgets, the only, so rec is asking for about a $3,000 increase. The library is asking for about a $4,000 increase. Library increase goes directly to salary of the librarian, so that's where that increase is coming from. Can't remember the rec department budget increase, what it was for. I say it was for
said.
equipment related things.
$700.
It was 2,700.
Yeah,
I want to say it was related to equipment purchases, but I can't recall.
yeah.
But that was the budget they submitted. Listers reappraisal, we bumped that up by 2,000 as opposed to past year's budget allocations. Just because a reappraisal is going to be coming down soon. If folks have been paying attention, typically in any year, I want to say it's like 13 to 15 towns need to get reappraised. The way that the market has gone and how it's thrown CLAs out of whack, I think the state said something to the effect of like 60 towns are probably facing reappraisals in the next coming year, like annually for the next few years. The good news here is that our reappraisal fund is in a really good place. And so we're gonna kick it up by $2,000, but the fund itself is in a pretty good place. So we're not looking at any kind of large unexpected expenditures associated with that reappraisal that we can't afford out of the fund. So we've done a good job saving. So other reserve account appropriations, you're gonna see are pretty much in line with past budget years. Building Capital Improvement Fund, just to highlight here, we are gonna be looking at pulling some money out of there for the renovations for this building. So we have continued to, make allocations to that fund, so that can get beefed up. Again, the Infrastructure Replacement Fund, which is the 20,000 here, that's going into the fund which we're gonna be pulling the match requirements out of. Assessments, those are fixed, we can't really change those. They have remained fairly level, the county tax has gone up. And then agency requests are shown here, based on what was received by the budget committee. So,
I just have a question on line 57, public works miscellaneous, what was that?
That's all like
I can't
streetlights.
remember.
Streetlights is the biggest contributor in
right.
that one. That's
Okay.
all, that's the miscellaneous of
Yeah, okay,
mowing, all of
okay,
properties, that kind of stuff.
yeah, that's right, yeah.
so I'm gonna stop sharing. That is, that is the budget as adopted and proposed by the budget committee. Sue, any comments from a budget committee perspective?
Nope, I'm glad, I think 9% is the right place to be. We worked hard on that to get that to there.
Yep.
Nope, that's it.
Erin, anything else you wanna add from a budget perspective that we?
No, I'm happy with the unreserved funds that have helped keep that number down, because things went up so much, so.
Yeah.
I think 9% is totally fair, given the state of the world, and hopefully everybody else thinks so too.
Yeah.
Charlie, before you vote, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Job well done, Larry, by the way, but something caught me off guard really quickly. The library is asking for a 20% increase in wages for the librarian. Are they extending her work hours or what? That's a huge increase of wages.
Yeah, they're looking to go from a budget of 20,936 to 23,399. And again, the town's allocation, if my memory and understanding is still correct, is that the town's allocation goes towards the librarian's salary. I can't tell you much more than that. That was the number we got. I'm sure that if you wanted to ask the library to stand up at town meeting and explain what the increase is due to, they'd be happy to, but I can't explain that for them.
So there is no justification included with the request?
We didn't get any kind of a narrative along with the budget, we just got the budget itself.
Charlie, could you look at the budget? I mean, do you have it there? I mean, like the lines, I mean, I believe you're right that it was the
Yeah.
wages.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
It's, I don't have
This
it,
is the wages.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
have it in front of me, but the increase is wages. I don't know if they're
We
increasing,
tried this, the last increase in pay, for a justification, never really got it. So
yeah,
I don't know, I think it was 2 years ago we got an increase, but we finally determined that her hours were increased by like 2 hours a week or something.
That's,
Went from 20 to 22, maybe Erin has a better memory than I do.
no, that's right, Larry, and so they can't increase her hours more, because then she would be subject to be able to be entitled to the retirement, which would cost them a lot more than this. So I think the idea is to bump the wage itself. And I do know we do the salary, VLCT puts it out every year, and I send them all the information. Most towns in the state do, so that there's this book that the benefits, and can't think of the exact name of it right now, I'm not going, compensation and benefits analysis for the state. So I think they based it off of the information in that, based off of what other librarians are being paid throughout the state. So there is data behind a salary increase based off of what other towns are getting. I am assuming that that's the direction they're headed, and I probably shouldn't assume, but I know that they asked me for that data, so I know that they did at least look at that.
Well, I need to not like a 20% decrease in our property taxes, please.
Me too, Larry.
Me too. Erin, a question for you on that booklet that you were talking about?
Yes, Sue.
Are they comparing, I mean, is it, the compensation that was being paid, was that for a 20-hour-a-week librarian?
I just provided the books. I didn't provide any
I didn't know whether
assistance.
you had looked at the book, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I gave them copies of the information, so I'm not sure exactly what I don't know much more than that, but I do know that they had some data behind it.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
any other questions on the budget from anybody? Do we still have Emily with us? Emily, any questions on the budget from Penny?
No, I'm listening, I'm trying to take it all in and thinking about the comps that Aaron's talking about with the librarian salary.
Yep. All right, well, if there's no other discussion or questions, the motion would be to approve the FY '24 municipal budget in the amount of $1,399,200.
Nobody wants to think that much.
Up 2, right, Charlie, not 4?
Yeah, actually, so this is a good point. We'll get back to this in the warning, but the motion, I guess, we'll clarify this in the warning, but the motion would be to approve the FY '24 municipal budget in the amount not to exceed $1,399,200. Wait, I can never say big numbers when I read them out loud.
You did it right.
The motion would be to approve the FY '24 municipal budget in the amount not to exceed $1,399,200.
220.
$220.
34 cents.
We'll just leave it at the 20.
I can make that motion.
All right, yeah. All right, Mark has moved to approve the budget. Is there a second?
I'll put the weight on my shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll second it.
second by Leanne. Is there any further discussion?
The numbers that we adjusted earlier, are those accounted for in that budget?
The water ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, the water budget
Yeah.
numbers, the water budget numbers are still
Totally
accounted for in here, okay.
So that all auto-calculated so that we're talking apples and apples, right?
Well, the number, yeah.
Went to like 107.
Yeah, but that did not impact anything related to the municipal budget.
Apple is the general fund, orange is the water budget. Those numbers affected the oranges, and you're voting on apples.
I love your fruit analogy.
I know.
Yep.
Penny understands that.
Penny likes fruit.
All right, if there's no further discussion, we can vote. All those in favor of approving the FY '24 municipal budget in the amount not to exceed $1,399,220, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries. In the interest of time, we don't need to dig into this super deep, and we can circle back to this in a meeting where we've got, more time and bandwidth. But the ARPA funds discussion is one where, we should think about, we need to start thinking about what we wanna do with that money. Because we do have 359,000 and change, to allocate. Right now, the only thing that we have formally done is the Reagan Road Power Extension project, is we formally said we're gonna do that. We don't have a number yet, so when we get that number, we can formally
Yeah,
vote on moving those funds towards that.
yeah.
But there are a number of other projects that we kind of have out there to think about. There's the PSP renovations to this building. There's potentially things related to the 98 Main Street building. We've got 2 fairly significant infrastructure projects that we're working on, and to date, we have not pulled any money from ARPA towards either of those. The one thing that I do want to highlight is we do have another TAP grant, Transportation Alternatives Program. If folks remember that we were awarded to do the engineering work for the streetscape projects. And I'm remembering correctly that we did not budget the match, which was 75,000 last year, to be a reserve fund. Remember, that was not included in any of the reserve fund calculations. So that match requirement, we are gonna eventually be on the hook for. And it's not baked into the municipal budget at this point. And so that's an area where I'd recommend the board think about, allocating that from the ARPA allocation. But what I would say is, if board members wanna think about that, you know, circle back to that in your heads and think on that over the next couple weeks, and then we can carve out some time at a future meeting to make some more formal decisions there. But it is something we wanna think about.
Have we gotten any numbers together on what remodeling is gonna be, or we have,
For what?
for remodeling this building, for,
No, the RFP is pretty well completed. We're probably gonna have a meeting next week, the committee.
oh, okay.
And then the RFP can go out for the construction manager, and then that construction manager will get the bids for the project itself, but we're very, very close,
Okay,
very close.
Yep,
yeah, that'll help us.
A lot, yeah.
yep.
What to do with the other, yeah.
Larry, I see ya.
Yeah, Charlie, these ARPA funds, what exactly can they be used for? Can they, be used to improve, water drainage on the roads or anything?
So, Aaron, correct me if I misspeak, but we took the standard allocation of the ARPA funds, which essentially said to the federal government, COVID screwed us, it really affected our general fund and our municipal budget, we're gonna move all of our funds into a place where they can account for the deficit created in the municipal budget. What that did is it allowed us to allocate allocate in air quotes, those funds within the amount of time the feds were requiring us to. And it also now allows us to spend those funds essentially on whatever we want. Prior to that standard allocation option, they did say you had to spend it on your government services, frontline workers. I don't remember, to be honest, off the top of my head. There was like four buckets. But with the standard allocation, we essentially took those and moved them into, we now have it's a reserve fund.
It is.
Yeah, a reserve fund with those funds in there. We could now use those for whatever we wanted to, essentially.
General government expenses.
General government expenses, thank you, Aaron.
So, we could do some more.
Big words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we could put them towards road projects, we could put them towards whatever we wanted. I think the general high level kind of thought process around it is that we'd want to put the money towards what we would consider special projects, things that we would normally not take money out of the annual budget for. But again, the board can decide, what we want to do there.
Well, the only reason I asked, Charlie, there's an area south from Anita's driveway on the Reagan Road that the ditches are plugged, solid.
Yep.
And during this last mud season, I can tell you by the use of my tractor and winching people out, that that's an area that needs better drainage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And possibly 2 culvert replacements as well.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if we can't handle some of that with the ARPA funds rather than putting it against our other budgets.
Yep. Well, there is, in discussing with the road crew, their kind of, their expectations, their game plan, their, war plan for this coming year, whatever you want to call it. There is a priority on culvert or on ditching. It was raised by Scott that we haven't done that in a few years and we really need to. So ditching is a priority this year. And we're also looking at a number of culvert replacements, which is why some of the materials costs in the budget are so high because of the cost of culverts. So there is a fair amount of that work baked into the municipal budget. So just as an aside, those are things that the road crew is looking to address.
We're hoping with a full crew now that we can get some of this stuff done, and hopefully mud
That's all
season isn't so
great
bad.
and dandy, but I can tell you there's one culvert up here that has a big gap in it. And the correction for the last 3 years has been to put a rock over the big gap and then grade over it. And it appears every spring, and I have to go down and put up.
That's one on our list.
Yeah.
Cone and flag it and everything else. And then what does the guy do with the grader? He runs over my cones and damages them. So, we've gotta do something, because it's not just obviously the Reagan Road that has mud season problems, but we could cure some of it, okay?
Yep.
Yeah. that's what our plan is,
Yep.
is some of those issues is to get them fixed. Yeah.
Just in case you don't know, Mark, I've heard that before.
Oh, I know you have, but we've had, yeah, I know that.
Okay,
We've changed
Thank
almost
you.
every other culvert on that road the last few years, so that's just one we gotta get to.
Your point's taken though, Larry, that it's something that needs attention, and as Mark said,
Yeah.
now that we have a full road crew coming on board and hopefully no personnel changes in the offing there, we can really move forward with some of this work.
so just the personnel changes alone is a big deal.
Yep.
It really is. You've done a fine job.
Yeah.
So, at this point, I'd like to move on to the warning. So folks should have a copy of this in front of them. Aaron, Doug, thanks for your time tonight.
Everybody night.
I will screen share so folks on the call can see this. So, the warning. Standard language up top. First item is the moderator. Then we have town officers. So these are all just standard elections based on expiration of terms. Shouldn't be any surprises there. They're all things that we need to do. So item number 2, again, it's just elections. Item number 3 is adding a trustee seat to the library board. This was at the request of the library board. They'd like to go from 8 to 9 members. That's their request. That's why it's here. I will note just above that there is a election for a vacancy of a lister. So Jamie, I'm sorry. There's 3 things here with listers. One is Genevieve. Her term is expiring. The next is Jamie's. Jamie was appointed, so that needs to be elected. And now we do have a 3rd vacancy. So just as a note, that's why we have 3. We wouldn't normally have 3 listers being elected, but that's why we have that. Again, library board is number 3. 4 is a standard one every year. Shall the voters authorize the treasurer to collect current taxes? It's not a very sexy one, but it's important because if we don't do it, Aaron can't. Item number 5 is something that we carry over ever since it was established. This is every year the town votes on that, the half-cent increase, going back to 2018. The budget question is number 6, and so the budget question is framed a little bit differently this year. So if you remember back before COVID, when we had floor meetings, we went through and we voted on essentially everything except what was the contingent select board separately in like 40 different items. What is being proposed here is essentially that when we moved to the Australian ballot method, we basically rolled everything into one budget number. What we're proposing here is to, rather than have 30 different individual items that we have to vote on at town meeting, which can be quite time consuming, is to roll the budget into one budget warning item. Now, this could still be amended from the floor, like in the past. If a budget item up here got rejected or changed, we could amend the final budget number at the bottom. So this still allows for conversation and changes from the floor, but it rolls it into one warning item just for efficiency's sake. And if there are changes, we can figure that out in real time, and then put that forward, when the item goes up to be voted on. The next thing I will point out here is that, we used to say, do you approve this budget with this much to be raised by taxes and this much by non-tax revenue? The issue here is that if we approve that language and we come into the next fiscal year with a unreserved fund number which is wildly different, it doesn't allow the select board to make any budget adjustments to keep the tax rate down, essentially. So if that unreserved fund number shows up and it's much lower, knock on wood it won't be, but if it is, the board can then make a budget adjustment and say, all right, instead of 30,000 to the building capital improvement fund, it's gonna be 20,
Yeah.
or something. So we can then basically tweak it to keep the tax rate where we want. Again, if we said in the motion, with X to be raised by taxes and X to non-tax revenue, then those numbers get fixed and we have a hard time getting to what the actual approved budget was. So this language avoids that, but it does cap the budget at this number.
Yeah.
So we are held to a fixed ceiling of the budget. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Ideally, we don't want to back ourselves into a corner or we come into July 1st and go, oh shit, something happened, and now we don't have the ability to adjust where we need to be. Sue, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Charlie, so if I'm reading this correctly, accepting the 2024 budget not to exceed 1,399,000. So in other words, somebody couldn't say, I want to give the fire department an extra $10,000. So you can't, it's not to exceed that. So people can lower, they could take money away, but they can't add money to the budget, correct? If I'm
So
reading that.
this would lock in expenditures. So I guess, are you saying at town meeting or in general, somebody couldn't?
At town meeting, if this passed, they wouldn't be able to add money.
So in the budget discussion, preceding this vote on this item, there could be a motion to say, hey, we want to,
Give the fire
give
department
the fire,
$10,000.
yeah, so they totally could. And if that
But
passed,
then you would amend this number when we got to the warning.
yeah, so that
Voted on it.
that move would then impact that number. So if somebody said, we want to give the fire department $10,000, then we would adjust this to read 1 million.
Right, 230,000, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right, that was my question.
Yeah. You still couldn't adjust it.
yeah. All right, any questions there on that one?
So this might not be a question for right now, but just thinking about what Sue is saying, if we are adjusting the budget like that in real time at town meeting and asking people to vote on like one lump sum number, are we gonna have a way that we're like projecting that so that people can see it visually? Because I feel like if it's a changing target and we're asking people to vote on that, there's not gonna be a lot of comfort in that.
Yeah, so we'll be set up so that the spreadsheets will be there, we can make the adjustments in real time, and we can have a projector set up to show that adjustment in the budget and the corresponding change at the bottom. All right, any other questions on the warning? If not, I'm gonna stop screen share. Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Charlie, I think that's a good change, at the bottom there, was it, item 6? But however, something caught my eye about the delinquent tax collector. She seems to catch my eye a lot.
Yeah,
If you go up to delinquent tax collector, it shows her, that she expires on 2026. That would only be if she got elected again.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, so all of
I
the.
think they all show
So
that.
all of the numbers, yeah, so that would be the expiration date of the new term.
if they got reelected.
So all
Okay.
of these positions expire this year. So essentially what it's listing is the current individual and the expiration of the term that's being voted on.
Okay, you went through there kind of fast. I missed that fact. I apologize.
No, that's fine. It's a good point, because you're right. In reading it that way, you think, wait a second, you know? But
Now, well, the Molson may have had something to do with it. I don't know.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
The one change though, I think that you pointed out that we might want to revisit is the library trustee, remainder 3-year term expiring 2025, Jen Worth appointed. Just to keep it, should we have Jen Worth appointed, term expiring 20? No, because that's being elected to a term which is already in progress, not a term which would then expire. Right, because Jamie was appointed to finish out a 3-year term.
Right, she's already on the board.
Lister, remainder of a 3-year.
She wasn't appointed, she was actually elected for a town meeting.
Yeah. Okay,
She was appointed before the town meeting, but
yeah, okay. All right,
So if she was elected at a town meeting, then her term should be expiring, should be listed as an expiration, right?
I think, yes. It's the remainder of a 3-year term expiring 2025. She was appointed to fill out the remainder of the term, and so therefore the expiration date is 2025. I'm just wondering if we should list it the same way we have the other words. Jen Worth appointed. No, because that makes sense. It's the same thing with Jamie's above. Because in this case we're saying that
They waited,
yeah, it's an off cycle, which is why it's listed that way, not the other way.
yeah.
Yeah.
The other ones are on cycle, that's.
Okay. All right. So, is there a motion to approve the budget? I mean the warning.
I'll make the motion to approve the warning as it's written.
You want to second it?
I'll second.
Sorry,
No,
did
it's
I
okay.
not hear?
No, it's okay.
I was mumbling.
Great. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
We jumped right on that one. Wasn't $1,300,000.
And
make that
I have
motion.
posted.
Emily, that was an affirmative vote, right, Emily?
It was.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Sue, did you have a question?
I did, I just wanted to make sure that Emily and Suzanne are running again.
Yes,
Okay. Emily didn't answer.
I wasn't really given a choice, Sue.
That's true, because now you're my liaison.
Yeah, I know. I see you and Charlie are working in cahoots.
Good job, Sue. All right, with that, it takes us to fleet permits. We have 2 Newport Sand and Gravel and Jack F.
Good night, everybody.
Good
night, Sue.
Oh,
Night, Sue.
Chevalier.
Night.
This wasn't born.
Newport Sand Road. Is there one for Jack Horse?
Jack, it's behind that one.
Oh.
If you flip.
Oh, okay. So I'll make a motion to approve the fleet permits for Newport Sand and Gravel and Jack F. Coles.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion by Suzanne. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Me, just because I can't see them.
Okay. Thanks. Great. Motion carries. And that gets us through our agenda. So if there's something else to be done this evening, it's 8:30. A motion to.
No, visitors.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Larry. Sorry, visitors.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, I gotta earn my sash somehow. So, class 4 road signage about winter driving on set class 4 roads. I asked that, I think, last time we met. I'll give you a perfect example, this last Friday, Saturday, one individual got not only his Duramax Chevy stuck, he got his plow truck stuck and his tractor stuck up on P.E.G Road trying to get him out. And they were referred to me to go up and pull him out with my tractor, which I couldn't do because I was under the weather. We need to answer some of these questions about winter driving up on those roads.
So, I mean, like, I don't wanna sound crass, but like, if somebody's dumb enough to take their vehicle someplace their vehicle can't go, how do we fix that?
Probably put similar signage up as you do it for 58, Route 58. Because otherwise than that, you're relying on other individuals that live up in that area to pull these people out, and we don't even get a 6-pack of beer out of it, nothing else.
So I guess the question would be, with 58, the road is closed, so the sign says closed. With the class 4 roads, the roads aren't closed, so would it be travel at your own risk? Would it be
Something similar to that, yes.
Oh, yeah.
road not maintained?
And in some cases, the class 4 roads are not plowed, and they need to be notified.
So should we just put on there, roads not maintained in the winter, or something like that?
I'm surprised you're asking these questions. This was brought up over a year ago.
Yeah,
And again, this year, one of our select board members said she was gonna bring it, put it on the agenda. And I can't believe we're still discussing what the sign should say.
Okay, well, we can look at getting signs that say road not maintained in the winter months. I mean, that's,
Please do. You can't force individuals on class 4 roads to plow them. However, you can regulate how they plow them and not damage other people's property.
yeah, I guess I think the goal here, Larry, is like you said, we don't want to put people who live on the class 4 roads under a presumed responsibility of pulling idiots out when they get stuck.
yeah.
Every town has an idiot, you know.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like,
Or a few.
well, in my head, I was thinking the sign could say road not maintained in winter months, and something to the effect of, if you get stuck, you're gonna be billed. But because it's not a public entity pulling them out, we can't really do that.
No.
So, all right.
I think just put a sign up.
Well,
there.
we'll look to get those signs, Larry, and sorry for the delay on that.
Yeah.
Oh, and the other item I had, I still haven't received my sash.
Okay, we'll get on that.
Okay.
All right.
The embroidery department was backed up.
Everybody,
Bye.
enjoy your week.
Okay.
Good night, Larry.
Good night.
Hey, Carissa, sorry to keep you waiting.
Not a problem at all. I agree with what Larry said. Albeit, I don't know if we can get anything posted on the Google Maps or anything that keep directing people the short way.
Yeah.
So I know it's a long night. Thank you. So I just wanted to do a quick update on the town land, if I may.
Yeah.
I did apply for the Vermont Urban and Community Forest Program, and I want to say a giant thank you to you, Charlie, and Aaron, who already left, for assisting with getting the information that was needed for that. So in this grant, it was an application for fruit and nut trees, about 215 for the material. I did apply for other materials, trees, and irrigation, and some mulch through another grant, but those grants crosstalk, and they said that we were awarded this one, so the other one wouldn't be funded. So the grant that's offered is $3,800. And then MCC would be responsible for matching 26, 27, and then labor for planting. Right now, I have asked, because of the cost and because it's local, I have asked the Conservation District to set aside what they have and what we were gonna plant there, so that's about 90. The grant's requiring that we designate a signee. I sent you an email on that, and I sent it to Charlie, but I can send it to everybody. And then it also has language of, right now it's saying, the town of Montgomery will irrigate, mulch, protect, planted trees. I'd like to work on this with the wording for that, because that's just a very broad statement. But I don't know the time frame that we have to get back, so just kind of giving you an update on that right now. We did not get awarded the flood mapping grant with the Franklin County Natural Resource Conservation District. I did meet with the Vermont River Conservancy, State River Hydrologist, Lindsay White from MRBA UMatter, to weigh in for continuing to apply for the grant, and it was supported by all of those parties. So the Franklin County Natural Resource Conservation District is currently looking at other options to get us that modeling grant.
Okay, great. Is there anything you need from us as far as things to keep applications rolling or receipts going, or I'll check my email for what you sent. I haven't had a chance to read it yet.
No worries, totally understood. I'll email the information to all of you, but I am gonna get clarification from them on the irrigate, mulch, protect, and any other caveats, so that we know fully what we're signing on for before we receive this grant.
Okay.
And yeah, a designated signee is probably the only get back to me aspect at this point.
Okay. Great.
Thank you guys.
All right. Thank you, Carissa.
Bye.
All right. Well, if there's no other business to be done, then motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn by Suzanne. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Great. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Great. Well, thanks everybody. And you all have a good night.